Hello everyone. I haven't made a video in quite a while, but I just saw Wicked, so I thought it was only fitting that I gave a review. So, I'm actually someone who has never seen the actual musical Wicked. I've seen little clips here and there, and I know the general lore from just being an Oz fan. I've never actually watched the musical itself. Um, So I kind of have an interesting point of view being an Oz fan who's never seen Wicked, the musical, or read the book. Really, I know the general beats it follows. I just haven't seen the entire thing or read the book. And I think first of all, the concept of prequels are interesting. Often they're looked at as this kind of entity that offers this coiled explanation of something that doesn't really need one, like kind of an unnatural kind of thing that just feels forced to kind of, milk money out of a pre-existing property, which I think Wicked kind of started that trend, not the negative association necessarily, just more normalized fantasy prequels. But I think Wicked does kind of lend itself more to that sort of thing because there is stuff in the text that's like, okay, why does Glinda act the way she does towards the witch? She's kind of being suspicious how she can tell Dorothy she can go home at any time, but she doesn't. And why is the witch the way she is? Why, you know, her sister is dead. It's a pretty uh, kind of a solid motivation to be angry at someone. And there's different moving parts there that kind of lend itself to history. Like in The Wizard of Oz, you do kind of think, okay, what is the history of this place? Why are certain things the way they are? So I think Wicked is kind of a bit more natural than other prequels might be. And I do think when you explain certain things in Oz, it's sort of a double-edged sword because you kind of lose some of the magic of the mystery, but you also, you kind of you gain something from, getting interesting tidbits and interesting information that you didn't know before. Um, and I think Wicked in general, I think well, just overall, I did like it. There are certain things I think that feel unnatural. There are certain parts, like, for example, like certain things that Elphaba does that eventually come into her Wicked Witch of the West persona. There are certain little clothing artifacts or certain things that she obtains along the way that make sense. And then there's other things where it's like, okay, I don't think we need an explanation for that. That's a little bit much, and that's where it falls into some of the more typical prequel-esque trappings. But there are moments where it feels natural. Um, I think one of the biggest prequel esque things, at least when it comes to the negative association, is, and this isn't in the movie, but it's in the musical where, you know, Fiyero and Bach, they eventually become Scarecrow and Tin Man, respectively. And I really don't like that. I know it's its own thing. It's not canon to any other Oz media, but I just can't get down with Scarecrow being a former himbo. I don't like it because Scarecrow is just such an innocent character to me. I don't like that. But yeah. In terms of the other stuff, in terms of Glinda and Elphaba having that pre-existing relationship, I think that is a good story idea, and I do think it's done well here. I think Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo have good chemistry, um, and but I have to say I do think it felt a bit rushed. I don't know. They play it very well, and you do buy into their relationship, and you feel the chemistry. But it does happen so fast. They go from one thing to the next so quickly that it doesn't entirely feel natural to me. Just the way their relationship develops, and by the end of the movie, it's so long, and yet when we get to that end part, to the climax, and everything's going down, I don't really feel like I'm totally as invested as I should be. I'm invested, but it just feels like for such a long movie already that you would feel more of Glinda and Elphaba's relationship. And I don't know, I just feel like there was more to explore there and more to explore from how they get from point A to point B to point C and so on and so forth. Um, I think the concept in general is interesting. I mean, because when, the Aussians are seeing Elphaba and they are judging her for her skin color, and just generally being petty and mean and bullying, and I don't know, it's something about it I have mixed feelings on because I feel like Oz to me like represents escapism. It's the place over the rainbow. And of course there's all these barbaric things going on like, witches trying to kill you and yeah, Glinda does say things like only bad witches are ugly and that's a little ridiculous. Obviously. It's a bad message to send to say the least. But I don't know. I think there's something you lose a little bit of something when you basically see everyone in Oz acting just as, um, I guess, just in such a kind of shallow and heedless, parasitic manner, if that makes sense. There is a little bit of something lost there. When Oz just feels like Earth, but there's magic. There happens to be magic. But that said, the story of the Wizard of Oz is about how there is no place like home and how you can't take things for granted, and that kind of thing. So maybe it does make sense in some ways, right? Um, but yeah, outside of that, I do think it's interesting, lore. I enjoy the little metaphorical bits, the kind of that the allegory stuff, how the wizard is talking about how, you know, the people need a common enemy. Um, there's a lot of, I guess, history is written by the victor kind of things going on, and kind of commentary on how the media can tout someone as the enemy and control people, have people think what they want to think. There's definitely a lot of great commentary on fascism, the rise of fascism, which is feels very pertinent in the current climate that we are in. Um, and I really like Jeff Goldblum as the wizard. That's like genius casting and makes a lot of sense. Um, so I'd have to say I do like the way that comes together of how Glinda represents kind of the more liberal idea of, oh, we have to stay in the system to improve it, and how Elphaba represents the more radical, like, no, you have to completely just destroy it and dismantle it. I think that's there was a lot of talk about things like the color grading and things like that, and I kind of had a sort of a negative view on that aspect of the movie of like the CGI of it, the just the way everything's kind of washed out looking, just the typical modern Hollywood look. But I have to say, in the actual movie, it looks a lot better than in the trailers. I'm just fully laying down now because why not? I think it's amusing. Anyway, but yeah, the train that Elphaba takes to Emerald City looks great. Shiz University looks great. Munchkinland at the beginning looks great. You can tell there was a lot of work into building those sets, and there are parts that do kind of fall into the typical modern Hollywood trappings of CGI and kind of just washed out, just kind of overabundance of CGI. But I'm done with some more saturated movie. Performances were all great. I think in terms of just raw vocal ability, Cynthia just kind of killed it just effortlessly. So just all around, in terms of just sheer performance and choreography, everything was great. I thought Ariana Grande was definitely stand out as Glinda, had a lot of funny moments. In terms of music, I think there are moments I feel like I'm just kind of sitting there like, does this really need to be sung? It's not as eloquently done as the MGM movie where it really feels like every time someone sings, it's earned and natural and flows just right. And I do think a lot of the music in here does feel very Broadway and not quite as, um, I don't know what the right word would be. I think the MGM movie has music that's like kind of more digestible for general audiences. Um, and I think a better soundtrack overall. There are some songs on here that are just kind of typical Broadway and kind of forgettable to me, but there are also really good songs like "What Is This Feeling" and "Popular" and "Defying Gravity" that stood out to me. So I like those songs. Overall, I liked Wicked. I wish there was some more development on certain things, such as Glinda and Elphaba's relationship and some more Ozian qualities to really make it feel more, I guess, just otherworldly. But it's a pretty good movie overall, I think.